America is the center of the world. So America has huge responsibility in what's going on. The information that I want to present and talk about with you guys today is different from the first show that we did. There was an experience, I think it was on the morning of the 9th of October. There was a golden orb open up. Now this is a being called Pancake from Orion. This being's got a gold device that goes around his crown that comes up with 2 arcs on it. What Corey Good's been talking about for a while is the solar flash, because I have been shown solar events, some of the implications, and what this actually is something that's a ascension process for those that are ready to take it. We're going to see possible volcanic activity and tsunamis, which goes into fires, typhoons, cyclones, hurricanes. It seems that everything that's going on is being affected by the sun, they'll show me. There has been solar flash type events every 12,500 years. We are on the precipice of that now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Edge of Wonder. Today we have the privilege of talking to Peter Maxwell Slattery, and he is going to take us through some crazy stuff that only Peter Maxwell Slattery can take you through.
Peter, thanks so much. It's great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me back on, guys. It's such a pleasure.
And if it doesn't seem like it, we're doing this from across the world. Peter is actually in Australia right now, so don't let the camera fool you. I wish we were in the same studio, but hey, we will be in January, right?
That's right. We've got Disclosure Down Under, where we've got yourselves, Barry Littleton, James Gilliland, John Vivanco and Jordan Sather all coming over to do conferences. They're 2-day conferences in Melbourne and Sydney. We've also got a workshop before the Sydney one with John and his wife and myself doing remote healing and also CE5 skywatching. So it's going to be a fantastic event. For those that can't make it, we're live streaming as well. So everyone can get involved if they wish to do so at disclosuredownunder.com.
That's awesome.
Well, and I mean, man, there's not, from what I know, there's not that many conferences down in Australia, right? So this is a huge deal. I mean, anyone who's into this kind of content that all of us are producing, I mean, this is definitely your opportunity to come see something like this, right?
Definitely. We do have a few here and there, but this is something where we've got every single facet of what we could say cryptozoology, paranormal, UFOs, the spiritual aspect, conspiracy. Everything's rolled up into one with this conference, which is what we aim to do, to supply information for basically all aspects to do with what's going on at the moment with the paranormal, with the universe, spirituality, ascension, everything. So we've really just jam-packed everything into this.
Well, and I mean, cryptozoology, this is a hard thing to research, and you know, there's not that many people involved in cryptozoology, and thanks for including a couple of guys that actually fit into that category to be there, because, you know, everyone thinks we look really weird, so...
No, you'll fit in. You'll fit in.
Maybe some of the faces that Rob makes. These are like screenshots, and Rob's always like, ah!
Today I go online, Peter, and somebody had posted something to our Edge of Wonder Facebook page, and it's basically this face I always make when Ben and I are live, like I'm doing this, and the guy posted, and he's like, "Is this guy a clone?" Question mark.
Well, you never know. They'll throw anything out there.
Well, Peter, why don't we like jump right into this? Tell us about some of the things that you're doing. I mean, I know a lot of people who've watched this already watched your previous episode that we have with you on YouTube. And if you guys haven't seen that, make sure you watch that episode. That was when we were at ECETI with a bunch of other people. But so tell us, I mean, what's been going on with you? How are you doing? And
well, yeah, and what are we going to talk about today, right? I mean, there's some, you've sent us an email with some of this stuff, and man, this looks awesome.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a rundown first of some of the things that you want to talk about and cover, so everyone kind of has an idea.
Definitely. So when we look at what's going on at the moment, we have so much going on with so many implications. And the information that I want to present and talk about with you guys today is different from the first show that we did, just for the simple fact that was covering more the evidence and experiences, the surveillance, certain things that are happening to me, because I do have some of the most UFO and paranormal footage on the planet that's been verified. So I want to go away from that and focus more on the actual information, because that's sort of like bait. And what I mean by bait, and I've talked about this with James Gilliland, that's, you know, interesting. It sort of sucks people into look into this phenomena. And yes, I happen to experience it a lot. But what the real information is about here is the information from the extraterrestrials with multidimensional beings and transdimensional beings that I'm interacting with. And that's where I want to go today, because this goes into a whole range of things. Now, one thing I want to cover is our history. Basically coming from what I call the blueprint, how this reality manifested, from there going into the history of humanity going back to Lyra, from there to the Orion Wars, and a bit before that actually the Lyran Wars as well, stepping forth and going into humanity's history, why we're in the predicament that we're in, and what we can do to play our part to get out of this situation, because there is so much to this that we cannot possibly know where to go unless we know where we've been as a collective, because there's so much that is even stored in our epigenetics, in our history from our ancestors. A lot of that needs to be purged and cleared up. And yes, this can sound a bit airy-fairy, but with the dots that I'm connecting, and the more that we can look at the science backing the physical aspect of this entwined with the spiritual aspect, we can start to come to some truth, which does lead into what Corey Good's been talking about for a while, and I've been talking also about since about 2013, is the solar flash, because I have been shown solar events, some of the implications, and what this actually is something that's a ascension process for those that are ready to take it. And so that's what I'd like to go into today with you guys.
So Peter, in your email, you talked a little bit about the Elohim Representative Council and your latest experiences with them, and then you even talked about like who is shi-ji, and then the Orion and the Lyran Wars, and that all sounded really cool to us. We were thinking about maybe covering that in the first episode, and then maybe seeing where it goes.
Great, great. So there was an experience, I think it was on the morning of the 9th of October. Now, in the adjacent room to where I am right now, there was a golden orb open up. Now, this is a being called Pancake from Orion. Now, there's images I've got up on the website in the art section, or ET Races section. This being's got a gold device that goes around his crown that comes up with 2 arcs on it. And this is a very enlightened being, 6th density being from Orion. Now, what happened was he appeared in a golden orb. Now, basically a Merkaba, a light body, these are very advanced beings that I'm working with from Orion. It came at me, engulfed in me, and next minute, bang. Now, this was a physical experience, not astral. I appeared into what I can describe as, it looked like a cathedral structured from light. And Pancake was there with me and some of the other beings that I've been interacting with. And overlaid on us was the Elohim in a crystal cave. Now, the best way I can describe this is like a holographic projection, or if you've ever seen Minority Report with the screens coming down where they touch things, it's sort of like that to give you an idea. Now, the information revealed to me was that there was 33 of us representatives there working with them, and I have been through operations and working with them for a few years now. It wasn't until a couple of years ago it was revealed to me that the people that I was with, and sometimes by myself with these experiences, was that this was the ERC, the Elohim Representative Council, which is beings basically that are representatives not just for the council, but they're relaying this information back to their own civilizations. And there's a lot more than 33 civilizations, but there's around the 33 mark that do have influence that can change and uplift the consciousness of their own race and give them a heads up on things that are going on, implications of that nature. Now, the information...
Hey, Peter.
Yep.
Before you go any further, I'm just trying to understand exactly what happened to you. So you said you're in your room, and then this like physical golden, this like light orb came to you, correct?
Yeah, so what happened was there was, I'd say it's probably a 6-foot orb, maybe a bit bigger, and it's just come straight at me, and there's like a jolt, like a boom. It's like a shockwave goes through you, and then bang, I pop out in this cathedral structured from light. It's a big, sort of like a church, but massive, structured from white light, sort of rainbow iridescent in parts. Now, there was other beings there, 33 representatives, and overlaid around us is, like, the only way I can describe it is a quartz crystal type cave pulsating with 12 Elohim evenly divided around us, overlaid on top of us. And I've been in that device. It's sort of like a craft, but it gets in depth the more that I explain the Elohim, which I can do later. Now, there were other entities there, which I call the Lords of Light, the Brotherhood of Light, and the Sisterhood of Light. And there was other entities above them that were sort of on the peripheral of the cathedral up high. These are plasma type beings, light substance type beings. So what happened was, between each one of us, there was a download of information pertaining to our civilization, coming times and things that are happening. So what I was shown is that there is going to be an upping in everything. There is a purging happening, so to speak. This involved earthquakes. I was shown a wave of earthquakes. Now, nothing is set in stone. This is what I want to tell people. This is not to fear you. This is not to upset you. This is to give a heads up on possibilities, which is why I did the 11/11 World Peace meditation just the other day before this was recorded, because the more that we can join together, the more we can rectify and work together as a civilization to rectify some of these things, which were earthquakes. Now, this involved America, New Zealand, Japan, Italy, and Indonesia. From that, we're going to see possible volcanic activity and tsunamis, which goes into fires, typhoons, cyclones, hurricanes. It seems that everything that's going on is being affected by the sun, they'll show me. And this is due to what's going on in galactic center at this time. So what happens in the center of our galaxy affects all the stars. The stars in turn affect the planets. That's why we're seeing a slight heating up of all the planets in the solar system. There is, you know, of course, CO2 emissions do not help the cause, but it's not purely what's going on here. We're seeing an energetic change, an energetic wave. The information also was going into mass shootings and political upheaval. Now, it's funny because pretty much after this experience, I started to see in the news headlines worldwide some of these things come into fruition. Now, specifically, what I have been shown in the past as well, included in this experience, and it's the best way I can describe it, it's like instantaneously you're shown in your mind while your eyes are open. It's like you're in a dream state while your eyes are open, physically looking at the beings and those that are with me. You're seeing basically on a TV screen image after image after image, and there is books of information through what I call thought transfer. Now, it comes through as thoughts. It's just a knowingness, awareness with each thing that was being shown to me and projected, and it was different for each individual there, again, for their own civilization. Now, America, I feel, really has to watch out at the moment what's going on and not be played. And why I'm saying this is because the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever people want to term that, would love a civil war scenario. And I don't know if you guys have covered this, but we're seeing this play out by the day. Division by the day is playing out between those that are melanin dominant, Asian background, Caucasian, Hispanic. We're seeing this play out, this division. And those that are aware of this, there's not that division for them, but it's our responsibility, those that are aware, to hold space, to send positive energy, to help clear these energies, because, look, America is the center of the world. People don't want to admit that in a lot of other countries. Yes, we've got Russia and China, which are huge countries with huge influence. But it's almost like if America says something, the rest of the world will believe it or go with it. So America has huge responsibility in what's going on. And so we are seeing political division going on at the moment. And basically what we need to come to as a collective is a point where we need acceptance of everybody's religion. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Everybody's culture, everybody's colour. We need acceptance and unity for people to embrace who they are, what they are, to overcome these types of things. And so basically through that interaction, I was shown that love is the key to rectify a lot of this going on, to help minimise this, because this is going back to a war that has been going on for a very long time. Well, this goes on millennia, because it didn't start in Lyra, or Lyra, however people want to term that. This goes completely out of our solar system, out of our galaxy, into other galaxies through a virus, through an artificial intelligence that when the environment's right, certain beings incarnated and created an artificial intelligence which now works through planets like Saturn, satellites like the moon, that are holding a frequency to where people have got a veil in front of them to not see the true reality of what's going on. And so that is, you know, what I've been shown in a recent experience. And then how that ended was basically I could feel Pen-K put his hand on my shoulder and it was another pop. And I was back in my kitchen and that was the end of the experience. I could probably write almost a book just on that information, because as I say, when these experiences happen, it's like books of information and data are transferred. And how that operates is they send a thought to you and it goes into your light body and it comes down through the crown chakra, through the right side of the brain to the left, and slowly it's absorbed to the human body computer brain and translated into ways that we can understand, in my instance, English. And it's very limiting to use English for some of the experiences that I've got, because there is no full amount of words to describe these experiences that myself, and upon thousands and I believe millions, and actually I believe everyone on the planet is an experiencer as well if they took notice of their thoughts. So there is a lot to this information, but I'm not the only one talking about this information, which leads into some of the stuff that I was shown with what's going on with the sun. Now the sun is a multi-dimensional portal. Now in 3D existence, we are affected by it. We're affected by the UV, we can be burnt, things of that nature. These beings have multi-dimensional crafts, and those that are advanced can actually use the star, our sun, solar system, they can use it to pop out at other stars in other systems. They know that it's a network, and I believe in time scientifically they're going to find out that all stars are connected through an electromagnetic type tunnel. There's a network. And so what's happening with the sun, as I said before, with the galactic center, there's this change of frequency of energies going on, and we do now look at evidence that there has been solar flash type events every 12,500 years. We are on the precipice of that now. And so I was shown that there is going to be amping up of solar activity, and potentially leading into very soon what we call a solar flash type scenario, which I believe our ancestors went through about 12,500 years ago as well.
You know, Peter, it's really interesting that you're talking about this, because actually just a couple days, I've been, usually like when I meditate, I'll kind of see things. I haven't really had anything happen when I've been meditating for quite a while. And it's kind of interesting because just a couple days ago I was meditating and I kind of saw very similar scenes like you're describing about these earthquakes. I just saw a lot of earthquakes happening and a lot of water and a lot of rain, like rain non-stop in some areas. And it was really interesting because the next day after that night and the next day, I saw Corey Good had a post, and it was this he was kind of saying it was the first time in a long time that he was contacted physically by
the Anshar.
The Anshar, you know, and then hearing what you're saying as well, and it just kind of all comes together. It's just kind of surreal for me, like listening to you right now, because I was like, wow, like all of this really. Something seems to be going on right now. I mean, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think people in our community have a hard time with is kind of listening to information like you're giving and then trying to figure out for themselves whether they think it's real, you're being truthful, these kinds of things. Like it's like constantly there's kind of doubt being shed on a lot of these things. But I would just, those people that are kind of on the fence about this, I think the main thing is, well, think about what these messages are. Like, it's not like telling you to do anything bad, it's telling you to love people more. Yeah. Like, where's that gonna come from except, even if you don't agree that those are real, like, that's still a good message to take home, and you should really think about that, because those things that you're describing actually do affect everything. They are real things, and us increasing compassion and love for everyone is actually the fundamental resolution to all of the world's problems right now. And however you're coming to that conclusion, you should come to it. I mean, that's kind of what I want to say.
I think you hit it right on the nail right on the head with that. Because I mean, like for me, you know, I started understanding like, wow, you know, our life is very finite. Like, you know, everything could just end in a moment. So therefore, it's like, really, what are we living our lives for? Like, what's our purpose? You know, and like what you said, being compassionate with each other, searching for like a higher truth, you know, and it's like coming together as a race. And I think that's what these dark forces are trying to stop us. Like earlier, you were kind of talking about keeping us in a state of conflict and what's happening with the world currently, especially with the cabal and what's going on. And it's just so fascinating because they're afraid of what would happen if we actually came together. I mean, there's a billion people, over, you know, billions of people on the planet.
Well, yeah, there's a reason why they're trying to create the separation between all of us, why they're trying to keep us in a constant state of conflict. It's literally so that this can't happen, right? And I think also it was really interesting, like Corey's message that he got from the Anshar was, in my opinion, so extremely similar to yours, because the message that he got was that a lot of people are looking externally and trying to figure out why they can't ascend, right?
Or just the interference they're encountering.
Or the interference they encounter,
like
but the answer was to look inside yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, I think a lot of these things, like we need to dig inside of ourselves and work out the issues inside of ourselves. Anything that's happening externally, you have to work out on the inside first, and if you're doing that, you're making progress, and this is how everyone can actually ascend, you know? Like, this is actually how you can raise your levels and get through these things and become better people. You know, some people call this kind of a thing light, you know, light working and all of that stuff. Whatever you want to call it, becoming better.
Cultivation.
Cultivation,
you know?
like improving those things. It's so critical, and you know, it's a great message, I think.
Well, it comes down to the self-mastery experience, and so some of this information that I'm relaying to is from a being called Shi-ji from the Pleiades. Now, I've done 3 books called the Book of Shi-ji, the Book of Shi-ji 2 and the Book of Shi-ji 3, which goes into all of this information and different aspects of our reality, so to speak. And so it was explained to me and shown that we left Source, God-conscious state, to go and experience it in every single way possible for the overall collective. And so this comes to the point now where we're going through the master of mastering experiences in terms of this is the biggest experience you can possibly have throughout all planes and dimensions. We have got abilities once we've tapped into them that other beings, whether they're extraterrestrials leading up to and including the angelic light realms and the Elohim, we can do things that they can't even do in this physical form in the multidimensional state. They are where they are, we are where we are, but we have got access to everywhere and even to go and experience the ability to experience the physicalities of those densities. So this is what it's coming down to, is a self-mastery experience. Now, I don't want people to be in fearful mode with this information. This information is about an ascension process. Now, through that, of course, if we look at an earthquake happening, and you've got children and family around, yeah, people are going to die, of course, unfortunately. And it's not like I condone that, and I'm happy about that. But the bigger picture here is that you are having a Earth-human experience at this time, and this is way bigger in terms of this is multidimensional implications. Now, why I say the ascension process is whether through the solar flash or obtaining the rainbow light body, when you go into these different states of consciousness, even when I go to 5th, 6th, 7th densities in physical experiences, or sometimes they've got to rip me out in my light body to experience some of these realms and crafts, the physicality of those dimensions are completely different to here. They're a lot more structured from very bright light. There's more geometric patterns to it. Everything's got more of a geometric form. Why I'm saying this is because the implication for those that are ready to ascend, they're not going to be worried about any of this. It's when you ascend, when you experience these other realms, when you get to go up the chain, so to speak, and there's no hierarchy. And I want people to use discernment. I don't want them to believe me with this information. Blind belief is the problem that we've got. But what I'm saying is, the problems that once you've seen as limitations exist no more. You are unbounded. You can create things through thought. That's how they do things in the other realm. They can create crafts from thought. They can tap into their light Merkaba. They've got an awareness. Like sometimes when the beings are connecting with my mind, when they're flying over me or visit me, they can actually perceive what a whole entire suburb or city is experiencing at the same time. I mean, every individual, they can perceive everyone what they're experiencing at the exact same time. So what I'm saying is when this ascension process happens, there is total recall of this life. There is total recall of family, friends. But like we could look into, say, Revelations, 2 will go and 1 will stay, I think it says. So what we could see was this was maybe even a telltale signs leading into the book of Shi-ji information, or the books on this information, that this ascension process activated through the sun, though it can still be obtained through the rainbow light body. Those that perish, those that go, they'll either be going through an ascension instantaneously, or they'll be incarnating on other places that they're ready for to continue their spiritual development. It's not that they're bad people if they don't ascend. That is their individual journey for their overall collective. They've got to go where they've got to go. They've got to experience what they've got to experience. And as I talked about in the last episode with that experience where I saw the makeup of the entire universe and other universes, the implications for this is huge, because we're holding what's going on here from the artificial intelligence and what I call the lower light, which encompasses the reptilians and Archon networks. All that has been holding the ascension process for beings that are even in the higher densities. This is going to be a huge shift once this happens, so there is huge implications for it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting what you're talking about with like, with the reptilians, the AI, like all of this stuff, right? And I mean, I think on the kind of the surface, it manifests in this kind of technology that is, you could say, kind of controlling us in a way. You know, like how Facebook, all these things on we use on our phones were designed as almost like not almost, it was designed by CIA, the Cabal general, I'll just say the Cabal, as like mind control kind of things. So, you know, we can't go 2 seconds without picking up our phones constantly, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing, I think the fear that you asked, you know, you touched on, like, you're not trying to bring like the fear porn, and I think that's really, really important as well. I mean, it's a really important factor. I mean, we try to, you know, it's like we have to talk about this stuff, but it's like, from our understanding, I think we're really trying to talk to the people who are still kind of lost in the darkness, or really more attached to like the satanic aspect of things. It's like these are the people that we're more worried about than, like, for example, like somebody who's already in the light, or somebody who already understands a lot or is seeking the truth. You know, it's like we're not as worried about them as these people over here that are still in the dark.
That's an amazing point to make, to talk about, because over the years doing this now, I've seen this over and over. And even myself, through my experiences, I had to do the research and I had to, you know, talk to people about this, because people should not get caught up in what you just talked about. Now, they would be ignorant to not look at it, meaning the population to not look at these subjects, because you need to be informed, you need to do your research. And there is huge implications, again, to what the Cabal, the Satanists, all these factions are doing, and they're doing it for the same cause. But when you get caught up on it, it energetically attacks you, it psychically controls you, and there's psychic attacks that happen from that, and you go into this state of obsession and freaking out that feeds these multidimensional beings, the Archons. And so, like I say to anybody, do your research, be aware of it, but then what happens is you see people that will spend 3 months watching every super soldier video and every satanic video and everything going on, and it overpowers them. This comes back to what I call Operation Starseed, which is a book I wrote in 2013, I think. And it's being pulled down at the moment because I'm doing a revised edition. Now, people who want some of these books, go to my website because they're selling up to $800 on Amazon, and I'm not endorsing that. I've contacted Amazon and they will not do anything about it. But in Operation Starseed, this is what it comes down to. On one side, we have these entities, the artificial intelligence, Archons, reptilians. Now, they're actually doing what they're doing to stay in a state of existence, believe it or not. For them, this dark energy feeds them so they can continue to exist, and it's actually the artificial intelligence that distributes this energy throughout the entire universe. It's almost like a virus. Now, we don't see direct influence from this in our day-to-day life, meaning people don't see them a lot of the time. People look at the news and things of that nature and don't understand what's going on. They look at the CIA and their mind control and all these things. They don't see what's really going on. On the flip side of that, what happened was these beings that are here for service, meaning I think a large amount of the population, whether they believe it or not, they come to a conclusion on the other side, so to speak, was the only way we can change this was for beings either coming directly from source or from whatever experience they're having at that time, whether it's extraterrestrial or in the other realms, was to incarnate into the human body, the earth human body, for the earth human experience, to change the experience from within. Because they can't directly interfere from outside. And so this is where it comes down to. If you want to change things, change comes from within, and from there it projects outside of ourselves. That is what's going on. We are in a illusionary state that is operational and manifesting from our consciousness, and the more that us as a group collective work together on this, we can manipulate our realities through thought, through consciousness. And so there are huge things going on as we've been talking about, but the thing is, people need to realise the power is within every single one of us, and there's two parts to that. There is the individual aspect and there is the collective aspect, and we need to master both. We need to have love and compassion and forgiveness for ourselves, but we also need to have that for everyone else. And the sooner that we can get on par doing both, we're going to see changes exponentially happen, so fast and quick that beautiful things can manifest from this.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in for part 1 with Peter Maxwell Slattery.
And stay tuned for part 2 on Edge of Wonder.